This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
And welcome in, folks, to another edition of Open Mic Night. I am your host, Noah Taluki, and I know it's been a while. It's been over a month since we recorded, but I am back. We're ready to talk some Lions and some National Football League news as well. And joining me this time, it's been a while since we've had a guest on, but it's Max Loeb. He's one of our assistant coaches here at John Carroll. He's a senior. And I know if you guys listen to the podcast a lot, you guys know I talk a lot about John Carroll, and so yeah, like I mentioned, Max is a senior, and he does a lot of social media work on his own with some NFL takes and all that. Max, thanks for joining us, and tell us a little bit more about yourself as well.
Thank you for having me on. First of all, like you said, senior at John Carroll. I coached our outside linebacker position, nickel hybrid. It's called a penny. And yeah, I do a lot of social media stuff. I have a TikTok page with over 100,000 followers, just talking about football, the NFL, college, a bunch of stuff. I use Twitter as well, Instagram. It's all Loeb's Leads. It's been a crazy ride these 4 years, kind of figuring out what I want to do in terms of coaching and that social media aspect of it. But I honestly wouldn't change it for the world. It's been an awesome time here, and I'm pumped to be on the show. I'm pumped to talk a little ball.
Now, what was the whole idea behind your social media presence with football, having over 100 followers?
You want the honest answer?
Yes,
I was
please.
Bored during COVID.
I love it. Well, this is when this podcast started, too.
Yeah. It was like summer after COVID, like 4 or 5 months after it started, and I was bored. I wanted to talk about football. I just started posting TikToks. I had a video. This would have been 2020 or 2021 maybe. I did like breakout players of the week, and my breakout player of the week was Chase Claypool, and he scored 4 touchdowns. That was the game. I think it was against Philly, actually.
Because that was 2021.
Yeah,
a lot of people picked up on fantasy after that.
Yeah.
I remember that week.
Yeah. So I posted a video like probably a day or two before he did that, and it blew up. I got a bunch of followers, and then I just kind of kept going from there. I posted a video talking about what the Jets should do to rebuild. This was the year they drafted Zach Wilson, and that did better than almost any video I ever had on my page. I blew up a bunch then, and ever since then, I've just loved it. I just love talking about football, giving my takes, hearing what other people have to say as well. It's been awesome.
Have you monetized on it at all?
Yeah. So wow. I monetize on I have monetized on TikTok. To be honest with you, the pay is not great there.
Right.
So most of the monetization comes from like brand deals or working with companies or making videos for companies. I worked with Overtime the past, it would have been November 2021 to July 2022, doing a little bit of basketball stuff too, but a lot of football stuff with them. I've used other like fantasy platforms and promoted other fantasy platforms, stuff like that. But that's where the monetization has come from.
I see. And you're from Boston, right?
Yes, I am.
That's right.
But I'm not a Patriots fan.
No, you're a Giants fan, right?
I am a Giants fan. Yes.
Yeah, I know. We were gonna have Max on a couple months ago when the Lions played the Giants, and of course, just a dominating win over your G-men.
I was there too, dude. It was insane.
Wow.
They ran all over them. It was demoralizing. It really was.
At MetLife. And, actually, speaking of the Giants real quick, we're going to get to some Lions talk in a minute. But, when the Giants beat the Vikings, and I predicted them to beat them, and then they lost to Philly, of course, 3 times in 1 year. I kind of picked the Giants for an upset there just because it's hard to beat a team 3 times, but Philly rolled. But when I saw that the Giants won a playoff game, and I think a lot of Lions fans out there were thinking the same way I was, where the Lions went 9-8, and they didn't, if they would have beaten Carolina, they would have been in as the 7th seed. And you're thinking, well, this is a team that we already beat. The Giants have had, throughout their history, a long string of playoff success. The Lions are just hoping for one win. And one win is not anything to gloat about in the playoffs. Great win for the Giants, of course, and especially how they started and with Brian Daboll as coach. But it's just one of those things where it's like the Lions have just died for this for 30 years, and the Giants get one, and it's nothing. But imagine what the Lions in the city of Detroit would do if they just won one playoff game.
I can't even imagine. Like they were. I think they were better than the Giants. I think they're a better team than the Giants. I think they're a better team than the Bucks. I think they're a better team than the Seahawks. I don't know about Dallas, but like those 3 for sure, I would pick the Lions to beat. Like they're a playoff caliber team, or at least they were this past season, and I was sad they didn't get in because I think they would have made some noise. But I mean, it's a tough spot to be in as a 7 seed going to play San Francisco. So.
Right, and because I really think the Lions, if they would have snuck in as the 7 seed, I think they had a chance to beat all of those teams in the first round, minus maybe San Francisco.
Yeah.
And that was, of course, the team that they would have played.
Yeah.
Even with Brock Purdy, rookie quarterback, out there, Mr. Irrelevant as well. And I don't know if you knew this, Max, but and I've never told the audience this either, but John Carroll, the last player that we had drafted was Larry Wonky in 1991. And he was Mr. Irrelevant that year.
I did not know that.
And he went to your Giants.
Wow, look at that. I did not know that.
In the 12th round. That's when they had 12 rounds back then.
Oh, my gosh, dude.
I mean, he was Mr. Irrelevant then, and then he was cut. He told me he was cut like a couple weeks later.
Yeah.
And he said,
still cool.
He said Lawrence Taylor said hello to him in the hallway, and that was his highlight of being a Giant. But when I saw Brock Purdy was Mr. Irrelevant and all that, I immediately thought of Larry Wonky.
That's crazy.
He's still very supportive of John Carroll and all that as well.
That's awesome. I had no idea.
Mm-hmm. He was a former Mr. Irrelevant, last draft pick. Because London Fletcher was not. He was our last NFL player, but he was not drafted.
Yep.
So he technically doesn't count as a draft pick. But I do want to get into some more Lions talk.
Yeah.
As I mentioned, talked about the 9-8 record. Just what a way to go out. I mean, 8-2 in the final 10 games. I think the Giants win, like we talked about, was really the point where I thought that we would really, we were going to make some noise and we were back, kind of thing, and how we, the 1-6 start to then. What is it about this Lions team, Max, that you see that really has sold you on being one of those playoff contenders in the future?
I think the biggest thing is they play really, really hard. Mm-hmm. Offensively, they're super tough. You'll say, a lot of times when you say a team is tough, they love to run the football. Those two things go hand in hand. But I thought Goff was excellent this year. I thought they passed the ball really well. And I think Jameson Williams coming into that offense in the future is going to help a lot. But I thought this past year with Amon-Ra St. Brown, and people forget they lost T.J. Hawkinson too. It was super impressive in terms of running and passing the ball. I thought Goff was really good. And it seems like there are teams, like the Giants are one of the teams, just finds a way to win. Even Dallas sometimes just finds a way to win despite if they don't play well. The Lions are one of those teams, I felt like. Because defensively, they don't do a ton to really scare you. But they keep it close. They turn red zone possessions into 3 instead of 7. They were good enough to be in games. And a lot of times, if you keep it close, the more physical football team is going to win the game. And a lot of times, that was the Lions. So I like the process of what they're doing. I love Dan Campbell. I love Ben Johnson as well, their offensive coordinator. He's something else. I'm surprised he didn't get a head coaching job, unless he wanted to stay.
Right. Well, but what I think is more impressive is that he did want to stay, and he announced. He says, "I'm returning for 2023," and I think he had a legit chance at the Panthers job.
Yes,
I think Broncos was another one that they were really looking hard. I think he even interviewed with the Texans. Mm-hmm. But I think it really speaks to the culture that Dan Campbell is trying to build with this Lions team.
Yeah,
and the fact that these guys want to stay. Now, it's a tough loss losing Deuce Staley, as that was just announced a couple of days ago. He is joining Frank Reich's staff in Carolina. Yep. He was the assistant head coach to Dan Campbell and the running backs coach. He was a guy that really behind the scenes, and we saw it a lot on Hard Knocks as well this year, where he was like that emotional guy, the emotional coach that was really pushing those guys, especially in the running back room. I know you know about Deuce Staley a little bit, but I know he's not he's not an offensive coordinator or anything like that. There's, as far as we know, they're still keeping Aaron Glenn as defensive coordinator. But do you think, this isn't going to affect the Lions too much, do you think, right? Losing an assistant like him? I'd
be shocked if it did.
Yeah.
I think Jamal Williams, DeAndre Swift, and those guys came to play for Deuce Staley, but I also think what we saw on Hard Knocks, because that was when I became first aware of him, Hard Knocks. Mm-hmm. It's also a product of what Dan Campbell's building. I think Dan Campbell brought Staley in or influenced Staley to almost be the way he is. Not to say he wasn't before, but I think the way that Staley is kind of was a byproduct of that Detroit culture. I think he fit perfectly, and I can only assume Campbell will bring somebody in who's much like Staley, especially considering running backs were one of the most productive units on that team this year. I think he's going to be committed to kind of helping that room get back to where it needs to be. And if Deuce Staley, the running backs coach, is the biggest driving factor in the Lions not doing well next year, I would be absolutely shocked.
Yeah. And we all know Dan Campbell loves to hire former NFL players on his staff, and he just did that earlier this week as well with Dre Bly, new cornerbacks coach. It was a famous hiring, an infamous firing, if you will, against the Dolphins when they lost 31-27. That was the week that they traded T.J. Hawkinson, and then they fired defensive backs coach Aubrey Pleasant.
Yeah.
He was the only coach that Dan Campbell has fired so far in his tenure, assistant coach, I should say, and then now comes in Dre Bly, who was former cornerbacks coach at the University of North Carolina, also fitting the mold, a former NFL player, former Lion as well. I believe Dre Bly and Dan Campbell played with each other in Detroit.
Interesting.
Dre Bly was in my opinion, as a player, was the definition of like a very high-risk, high-reward cornerback where he was very, very aggressive. There were years that he had, 10 picks or whatever like that, and he made the Pro Bowl. And then there were other times that he had a really bad year because I think a lot of it had to just do with the fact that he just played really aggressively. And when you play aggressive like that, sometimes you get burned over the top. So that's my impressions of Dre Bly as a player. Coach, I've been hearing that the North Carolina DBs were a little shaky this year overall, but we'll see. There's a big difference between the college game and the NFL game. Jim Caldwell had a losing record at Wake Forest, and then he had a winning record with the Lions, of course, as a head coach. So major difference for sure.
Definitely.
But
Definitely.
I want to talk a little bit about we talked about the T.J. Hawkinson trade and all that, and even without T.J. in the mix, I thought the Lions overall just they had better tight end play, I thought, throughout the rest of the season than they had with him. I mean, they had Brock Wright step up. They had the rookie James Mitchell from Virginia Tech step up. I mean, and they even had Shane Zylstra catch. I believe he had 5 touchdown catches the whole year.
Yeah.
So these are some no-name guys that I thought they played better than TJ at the beginning of the season, and it seems like I think that just is kind of a credit to Ben Johnson too.
Yes, definitely a credit to Ben Johnson. One thing I also noticed with their offense, passing specifically, is when DJ Shark came back mid-year, the passing offense opened up.
Right.
I think they needed a number 2 because I don't know if teams were starting to figure out Amon-Ra St. Brown, but they realized if we can just contain him, nobody else on that field is going to beat us through the air. And I think adding Shark back into the mix kind of opened things up for St. Brown. It opened things up for the run game. The run game was opening things up for the pass game all year. It's kind of how Detroit's offense works. But I think Shark has a lot to do with opening things up for those tight ends. And you really do need a number 2 in the NFL. There's only so much you can do without a true number 2. The only team that comes to mind that's succeeding without a true number 2 is the Kansas City Chiefs. And their number 1 is the best tight end in the NFL, and they're the best quarterback in the NFL.
Right.
So it's not something that happens very often. I think that was a huge, huge impact for them having Shark back. 'Cause I think his first game back was actually against the Giants. Because I think he played against the Giants, but I mean mid-season he came back and he played really well.
He was on a 1-year deal this year, kind of like a lot of people considered it like a tryout year.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll pay you a couple million. For 1 year, we'll see how much you can bring to this offense and if they'll reconsider signing. And there's still a lot of question marks right now if he's going to be re-signed or not.
Yeah.
Same with Jamal Williams. He's another guy that they're thinking about maybe letting go.
I think Williams will go, and it's so tough.
Be a tough loss.
You can get production there in the middle of the draft. You can get production there in free agency, especially because Williams is good, but a lot of the recognition and production he's gotten are because of his touchdowns, and almost 2/3 of those touchdowns are within the 3-yard line. It's not hard to replace that on the field. Off the field, though, I think that is their true leader. So I think if financially they make it work, they try to bring him back. But I think if Campbell and the ownership thinks that they need to actually invest money elsewhere, whether it be in the defense, and another passing option for Jared Goff. If they choose that, I think Williams will walk. And it's so tough to say because he epitomizes what the Lions culture is all about. But I think production, you can find it somewhere else. You can find it with your 5th-round draft pick.
I'm actually really hoping that the Lions, at least at this point right now, I'm really hoping that they draft a running back.
Yeah, I think they will.
Not first round, obviously, but somewhere in the middle there. You don't have to pay him as much, and there's I mean, you think of like guys like Kendre Miller from TCU, a guy that played against Michigan, as you guys know who listen to this podcast, and he's a guy that kind of sticks out. I think it was one of those middle round guys, tough runner. The Lions have not had a lot of success with their second, third round running backs. I mean, especially the last 10 years. You think of really first Mikhail LaShore in 2012. He lasted 1 year and that tore his ACL and that was it. Then you look at more recently with Kerryon Johnson. And DeAndre Swift, who really, I think, really found we kind of know what his role is now. And I think it's more of that number 2 guy. I think I can kind of compare him to Tony Pollard a little bit. Kind of like a backup to Elliott, but very valuable in that sense, but just can't be a number 1. Do you pay a guy that much? I don't see it happening. I can't remember how many years Swift has left, but on his deal. But
I think it's 2.
2. Mm-hmm. But gosh, it's there's going to be some interesting decisions for Brad Holmes and company for sure this offseason. I know one of them won't be quarterback. I think Jared Goff's back.
I'm with you.
I think he played well enough down the stretch this year. I mean, he didn't turn the ball over. He didn't throw any picks in the last 10 games, I think, and he actually has the current best streak among quarterbacks for most passes attempted without an interception. I mean, that's impressive when you look at the other quarterbacks in the league as well. But I mean, you got to say, I mean, Goff, I know his numbers were different on the road versus at home. He was a lot better at home than on the road. I mean, he's more of a warm weather quarterback, indoor kind of guy anyways. But when you surround him with a great offensive line that the Lions have, with some weapons that you have in St. Brown and developing DJ Chark like this year, I mean, I feel like he can really thrive if he has all the pieces around him.
Yeah, I think he did this year. I think this is whether it was him being in an offense that was just uber successful, which was McVay's offense when he was in LA, or an offense that could just keep him upright and allow him to make reads in the pocket, which is what Detroit is. Their offensive line is probably top 5, top 3 in the NFL. He is not a bad quarterback. You don't need 400 yards from him every single game. You need him to make the right decisions when he's called upon to pass, occasionally fit a ball into a tight window, but he's going to be able to get the job done. And it's really interesting because a lot of the teams who have been successful this year and who have won the Super Bowl in the past are not employing a big money quarterback. It's either quarterbacks who are like serviceable or quarterbacks who are young on their rookie deals. So a lot of these teams who are successful are not paying quarterbacks a ton of money. I mean, you look at the teams who were in the championship this year: Hurts on his rookie deal, Purdy on his rookie deal, Burrow on his rookie deal, and then Patrick Mahomes. That's 3 out of 4 quarterbacks who are not causing your team to go into a bad cap space. And if the Lions bring Goff back, it won't be for some crazy amount of money. It'll be for a decent amount that still allows them flexibility at other places. So I think it makes all the sense in the world to bring them back. I don't think they need this like gunslinger Patrick Mahomes type quarterback to go win 10, 11, 12 games. They won, 9 this year? They won 9 playing really good football the second half of the year. If they bring that in next year, they'll win 9+, I think.
Now, there's been talk for over a year now about this in the draft. If you're the Lions, do you draft a quarterback at all?
Not immediately.
Yeah.
Definitely not day 1. I don't even know if you do day 2, unless there's a guy that you really, really like. There's just so many other holes I think they can fill. I think they can get so much better on the defensive side of the ball and make them an even better team. If you really want to add another weapon for Goff, I think you can too. I don't think it's a necessity. I think they should focus on their defense, but I can't see him doing it. I can't see him trading up to take Stroud or any of those guys. I can't see it.
No,
maybe a third round pick.
No, me neither. I mean, he would just be a backup pretty much.
Exactly.
Because if you look at around the league, most starting quarterbacks in the NFL were first-round picks.
Yeah.
There are very few that were below that.
Yep.
So it's like, in my opinion, if you want your guy, it's got to be in the first round.
Yes, I agree.
You can't just bank on the third round, fourth round guy being your starter. Yeah. I just, if it happens, it happens. But you just can't invest all that. And I know it'd be, probably a cheaper deal and all that with money-wise. But, if the Lions really, really want a quarterback, that should be in the coming years. You shouldn't be focusing on it for sure.
And I've seen things on social media about people saying the Bears should trade Justin Fields, stuff like that. It is so much easier to get worse at quarterback than it is to get better. If you have somebody you could build around who has shown you flashes of good play, it's what the Giants did with Daniel Jones. They believed in him for 4 years, and he had a great season this year. They would have moved on from Daniel Jones last year. Who knows where they would be? Starting Tyrod Taylor, winning 6 games, like it's a lot easier to get worse at that position. And I think the Lions have something there, a top half quarterback in the NFL, just outside of that top 10. I don't think they want to mess it up.
I think at number 6, which is where the Lions are picking, because they got that pick from the Rams.
Yeah, that's right.
When they traded Stafford for Goff a couple years ago, you got to go defensive line. I think.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think there's some talent out there. I really, really wanted Will Anderson, but I don't think he's going to fall to 6.
He's not going to fall to 6. The interesting thing could be if they trade up a couple picks, because I could see teams like Houston, I could see a team like Carolina, I could see a team like Indy making a move to get basically those teams making moves and having 3 of the first 4 picks be Stroud, Will Levis, and Bryce Young. So like I could see Will Anderson fall into 5 or even 6, honestly. It would just depend on who trades up. Personally, I think he's one of the 3 best players in the draft. But, I mean, depending on who picks, depending on how much these guys like the quarterbacks, because I like Bryce Young, and I think Will Levis has the prototypical build of, everybody looks at Josh Allen, and I think, oh, we want our Josh Allen. I think he has that type of build. I'm not sold on Stroud, but I do think he's a quality quarterback. You have teams that really, really like those guys, they'll trade up and get him.
Quick side note for you, Max. Do you do a draft book at all?
I don't do a draft book. I have a spreadsheet, though.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's the same thing. It's just numerical instead of just I have them all written out, but it's much easier to look at it numerically.
The reason I asked is just because, for anyone that listens out there, last year we had Nate Leopold on, and he shared a lot of information about his draft book that he had and analyzing all these different options that the Lions could pick. And he's now personnel assistant with the Texans.
Yep.
So, he got that job a couple months after he was on. But he came on for draft day last year. But, good to see that you're at least getting some stuff in there, Max.
His biggest piece of advice, man, I talked to him just after Christmas, so like probably a month or so ago, was do something that separates yourself or makes you look unique. His was that draft book. I mean, I think mine's probably my social media platform.
Right.
But then he was telling me about it. I mean, obviously I looked at it and I saw it, but it is so cool, dude. It takes so much work. And one of my good friends here, Tyler Herbersky, does something very similar. He's in the grade below me. It takes a lot of work. Like, he's looking at 2 prospects a day. Like, I do my best to watch as much film as I can on these guys, but even that, it's a lot.
Well, it's sometimes it's hard to find film. I mean, you're just looking at
that
YouTube
too,
clips,
yeah.
especially in college. Now, NFL, you have now you have this NFL Plus thing where you can get film. It costs a lot of money, but you can get it. College, there's not as much out there in the database, so it can be harder to look.
Yeah, so I do have like a membership to a database for college film.
Oh, I see. Okay.
It's not 100% of the film for each guy, but there's a substantial amount of games for each player. So I am actually able to have all 22 film for any prospect I want to look at, which is cool, but it still takes a lot of work to watch through that film, and you got to know what you're watching for.
I'm curious, too. Now, do you put any of that film in your videos? Or is
yes.
it just, okay, so you're able to do that?
So if one of the guys I spent a lot of time looking at because it was fascinating to me was Jackson Smith and Jigba. I watched a lot of his film, and I made a couple videos on it because it was just so fascinating, his story, and not really playing much this year and exploding onto the scene the year before. So I've definitely talked about him. Jameer Gibbs is another guy I've watched a lot of. He is he's electrifying. I don't know if he's better than Bijan Robinson, but he is a very good player. I've made a couple videos about him too because he's genuinely a guy that's fun to watch.
Will Wayne Ruby be drafted possibly in the later rounds?
Not this year.
Oh, he's coming back.
He's coming back.
Oh, you're right. I forgot about that.
Yeah, but I mean, he is one heck of a player. He is he's legit. So I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if he doesn't get drafted if he goes to a camp. Like he's He's legit.
Man, those Mount Union records will never be broken once he comes back.
Yeah.
Yes, Wayne Ruby, of course, is a receiver for Mount Union. He had, I believe, 30 touchdown catches this year at the Division III level. And
it's pretty crazy.
First time I ever saw him calling a game, JCU versus Mount Union, I a couple years ago, I said, this guy could legitimately be an NFL prospect.
Yeah, it's why. He's a very, very good player.
I was going to say, maybe the Lions in a couple years could pick him up. If he's
That'd be crazy.
A D3 gem, if you will.
That'd be crazy.
Purple Raiders, a college that, of course, has a lot of NFL connections, and with Nick Sirianni now, too.
Yes.
As head coach of the Eagles, former player for Larry Karras over there at Mount Union. And I actually do want to talk about those games now, and I want to start with the Philly game versus the Niners, and oh my gosh, I mean, I know the storyline from that game is just the Niners losing Brock Purdy, and then they go to Josh Johnson, journeyman Josh Johnson.
Yes, Giants legend Josh Johnson.
Then he gets hurt, and then they had Christian McCaffrey switch his helmet out to get the plays maybe as an emergency quarterback, and then they just pretty much had to force Brock Purdy back in and not throw because of his now found out it was a torn UCL.
Yes, it's insane. And to be honest with you, that first half, up until probably just under 2 minutes left, it was a tie game. It was 7-7, right, even with Josh Johnson playing. And the fan in me wonders, the fan in me meaning me wanting the 49ers to win. The fan in me wonders how different that game would have been if the 49ers could have just put together a couple 4 or 5 minute drives to keep their defense off the field for a little bit. Because I think their defense got worn down, especially against a team like the Eagles. You're going to get worn down because of how much and how effectively they run the ball. But the Eagles broke them, I think, defensively. Again, not the hardest thing in the world to do because that defense is always on the field, but I do think they broke them. And it was a truly, truly eye-opening performance from Jalen Hurts the past couple weeks. It's been crazy.
Week 1, the Lions lost 38-35 to the Eagles at home, and a lot of people that was when the buzz started happening about the Lions a little bit, wow, this team is scoring a lot of points, but even then, Lions fans were saying this Eagles team it could perhaps be a Super Bowl team.
Yeah.
Did you think that at the beginning of the year when you saw the Eagles?
Yes, actually. Mm-hmm. A lot of what drove that was their schedule. I think my preseason prediction was 12-5. I picked them to win the division just basically off their schedule, seeing their defense is really, really good. I think Jalen Hurts was going to be good enough offensively. The addition of A.J. Brown helped them a ton, and I was convinced they were better than the Giants for sure, Washington for sure, and then the Cowboys are always a wild card. I couldn't confidently pick them. And I said over the summer, it would not surprise me if the Eagles got the 1 seed. I didn't know what was going to happen after that, and to be honest with you, they were not my Super Bowl pick, but I did pick them to win 12 games because their schedule is easy. Their division, although this year it didn't turn out to be easy, was a little bit easier looking at it from the preseason, and they're a good team. I was so sold on their defense at the beginning of the year. I didn't know about the offense. That was kind of the biggest point for me. That's why I didn't pick them to win the Super Bowl, but I'm a huge believer in their defense and have been a huge believer in their defense.
We've seen a resurgence with former Lion Darius Slay on the outside as well. A lot of people thought, man, this guy is old. Maybe it's good that Bob Quinn traded him in 2019 to the Eagles, but he had a Pro Bowl season, and he's been a real leader of that defense. And I didn't even realize this until the game, but maybe it's just me not paying attention, but Ndamukong Suh's even on the team. I didn't even realize that.
Suh doesn't play too much, but he is on the team. He is. And on the subject of corners, ex-Giant James Bradberry, I honestly think has been better than Slay this year. Bradberry has been unbelievable this year. And, I mean, you try to throw the ball against those two guys with C.J. Gardner-Johnson in the secondary, and then you got multiple double-digit sack recorders on the defensive line. Good luck. I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about Super Bowl predictions, but
yes, I will ask you about that after we talk about that Chiefs game as well. Chiefs-Bengals. I'm one of those people that is very against the bulletin board material, and I know Cincinnati was talking a little bit this week about Burrowhead instead of Arrowhead, and when I heard them saying that, and I know obviously Cincinnati, great team and all, but just based on that, I had a feeling that Kansas City was going to use that as some little extra motivation. In the NFL, that can go a long ways, and but it ended up being a great game.
It was a great game.
And Kansas City pulls it out, and they're going to their second Super Bowl in 3 years now.
Yeah, it was a crazy, crazy game. I picked Cincinnati to win the game. I was convinced they were going to win the game. Last week, they did enough to kind of negate how bad their offensive line had been playing. The most surprising thing for me, and I still can't get over this, they barely ran the ball against the Chiefs. That was a ginormous reason they won against the Bills. Joe Mixon ran the ball super effectively. I think he probably had over 20 carries as well. Definitely between him and Pirine, over 20 carries. They barely ran the ball against the Chiefs. And the game was close almost the entire time. It wasn't this thing where the Bengals were down by 2 touchdowns. You got to throw the ball and chunk it down the field to get as many points or as many yards as you can. It was close, and they opted not to run the ball. Granted, I do think the Chiefs' run defense is probably a little better than their pass defense, but they chose not to run the ball, which I think was the reason they performed like they did offensively.
And then you talk about the refs all day about the block in the back call and all that, but overall, I know gosh, that's the other thing too is like. There's been some games this year that have been sort of poorly officiated when you think about it. Yep. And I don't know if that's just something that once in a while it happens, or if this is something that the NFL really needs to be concerned about, or if the speed of the game is just so fast now that it's tougher for referees to kind of look. But that got a lot of social media attention, I think, too. Yeah.
I mean, that late penalty on Joseph Osai was a penalty, and I think
the out of bounds play. Yeah.
And that's hard to call on the fly too, and I think they got it right on the fly. But the whole do over, the next play calling a defensive holding or PI or whatever it was, that was kind of crazy to me. I'm not gonna lie, I'd never seen anything like that before. And I can't remember if it was that same play, but there was one play. It was a 3rd and short where Mahomes threw a little 5-out route to, I think it was Marquez Valdez-Scantling maybe, and Mike Hilton came in and made a very good play on the ball, and they threw a flag for pass interference, and I thought that was a really bad call. That was the one that really stuck out to me. The block in the back on the punt was pretty bad too, but that one on I think it was Mike Hilton, that was pretty bad. I thought that one was the worst one. It kept the drive going too. That was the worst part.
I'm talking with Max Loeb from Loeb's Leads on TikTok and Twitter. Also an assistant coach here at John Carroll on the football team. Max, I got to ask you about this Super Bowl now, and I know we're like a week and a half away.
Yeah.
And I don't want to get too much into in-depth and all that, but I just want to say, just right off the bat, Eagles, Chiefs, both teams have played in Arizona this year, I believe.
Yep.
And what do you think, just looking at the matchup, offense, defense, all that, who do you think is going to win this game?
I think the Eagles will.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I was thinking about it a little bit over the past couple of days. The Eagles' offense is better than the Chiefs' defense, and I think the general public of America will agree on that. I actually think the Eagles' defense is better than the Chiefs' offense as well. I know I can never pick against Patrick Mahomes. I believe he's the most talented player to ever touch a football, but that defense is so good. I think they're going to eat that offensive line alive. Granted, I mean, Andy Reid may come out with the game plan of the century. They could put up 25, 30 points, but I don't know if the Chiefs will be able to stop the Eagles' offense, and I think the Eagles will do enough affecting Patrick Mahomes, who's injured too. Like, I think I don't want people to overlook that. He's playing injured. You could tell he was not himself against the Bengals. Granted, he's still very good, but he's not himself against the Bengals. I can't pick against the Eagles. They're the hotter team. They're the better team, in my opinion. I can't pick against them.
If because you had Hurts a little banged up earlier in the year as well, if they need to go to any backups, it would be Gardner Minshew on the Eagles and then Chad Henne for the Chiefs. Imagine if any of those guys play in the Super Bowl.
Gosh, that would be insane. The thing with Henne is that game against Jacksonville, 98-yard touchdown drive. I think it was the second drive of the game. 98-yard touchdown drive was pretty impressive.
Old savvy vet.
Yeah.
Michigan.
I pray that Mahomes and Hurts stay healthy and we don't have to see those guys. But
Well, they'll be playing on grass as well.
Yep.
better than some of those turf injuries that we've seen this year. So just analyzing a little bit from some different aspects for the game for sure. But I want to get to some of these the NFL news as well. And obviously, Max, you following the NFL a lot. I want to start with this Tom Brady thing.
Yeah.
Now, look, I am one of those people, and I came on the podcast last year and I said, I don't believe it until I see it kind of thing. But about him retiring. But I don't know, something about that video that he put on social media, it just seemed a little more real than maybe some of the other stuff from last year.
I agree with you. I think him actually physically showing emotion in that video was very real. And I think what happened over the past year with the Bucs season, his life outside of football, this was a long time coming. I really did think he was going to give it one more shot in Vegas with McDaniels.
Wow.
But, I mean, it was either that or retiring. His life has changed so much. The perception of him has changed so much over the past year. It was almost time. I think he felt he had to cut his losses.
Right.
Which is crazy to think for the greatest quarterback of all time, but I think he had to.
I think another thing that was interesting, too, was last year it seemed like the news with Brady was, is he going to retire or not? I think this year was more so, what team is he going to play for?
Yes, I agree.
And I think the timing of it was interesting because it was February 1st. A lot of the NFL reporters were at the Senior Bowl in Mobile, which is happening right now.
Yeah.
So a lot of attention wasn't as much on with him or his news. It was more so Senior Bowl stuff or Super Bowl stuff.
Yeah.
And the time he took to announce it, and because a lot of the NFL reporters like Ian Rappaport and some of the other ones were kind of saying it was a mild surprise a little bit. They weren't expecting it. Last year, there was that whole thing with, this fake news thing with him retiring, and then he says, oh, no, I'm not, that kind of thing. So I think the timing is another interesting point, which is different than last year. So that's why it feels more real and more genuine this time than
it does feel more
than
real.
It did. But I just hope he doesn't pull a Brett Favre again and it's just kind of I'm back. I thought about it for the second time. But we'll see. I mean, obviously, I still think he's the greatest player of all time.
I do too.
Yeah, I know you're not a Patriots fan and all that, but your Giants beat him twice.
Yes,
so
I'll always have that. Actually, they're both in middle school. Mm-hmm. I'll always have that over my friends back home, which is crazy.
And Brady with those Michigan connections as well, University of Michigan. The fans didn't. They all wanted Drew Henson to start over him.
Yeah,
but I've actually gone through some old newspaper archives with the Detroit Free Press, and I've actually seen, it's really interesting, I've seen quotes of coaches from the late 90s in the Free Press talking about what a great quarterback he was, and this was before the whole Henson debate.
Interesting.
They were praising him even in 97, 98, that was before he was a starter.
Yep.
So even in those press clippings, I thought it was interesting that they were giving him a lot of praise.
That is interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and that was just a quick search on the Free Press archives on this database that I used to subscribe to. So just a good thing to keep in the back of the head. And for his first professional pass was actually against the Lions in 2000.
That's funny.
On Thanksgiving. So at the Silverdome. So
interesting.
So 2000 till his last pass was a 2-point conversion attempt to Mike Evans, I believe, against the Cowboys in the wild card game. I thought they were going to win that wild card game.
I did too.
Unfortunately, the greatest of all time, they call him. He goes out on a losing effort, unfortunately. Yeah. But 2028, he'll be eligible for the Pro Football Hall of Fame, I guess. And
wonder if he'll be first ballot.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I wonder. Yeah, I wonder if the media members will want to, widen his time of getting in. Yeah, that's a joke for sure.
Yeah, no shot.
But just me interning at the Pro Football Hall of Fame this summer. We had some debates about some guys, including our own London Fletcher, John Carroll, if he should be in or not. And it's interesting how the workers and the volunteers, they're they'll get into some debates about all that. But
I'm sure they're all super passionate too.
Oh, they are. And at this rate, J.J. Watt would also get in since he retired.
Yeah,
as well.
Yeah. Watt. I'm trying to think of anybody else retiring this year.
Those were the two big ones for sure.
Yeah.
If Brady's thing still holds, but
I think it will.
Yes, he's good. And It was a short video too. That's the other thing.
Yes.
It wasn't like some long press conference or anything like that.
Yeah.
He did it on his terms for sure. I want to talk to you also about some of these head coaching hires. It appears that the Saints have agreed to compensation with the Broncos because Sean Payton was still under a Saints contract. Of course, he retired after the 2020 season or 2021 season, took all of 2022 off, did his stuff with Fox on TV. It appears he will be the coach of the Broncos. And I got to say, it's interesting, Max, that he would go to the Broncos because this is a team that has needed a quarterback since Peyton Manning retired.
Yeah.
And this whole Russell Wilson thing, it didn't work out with Nathaniel Hackett, and it just seems like it's kind of a lost cause. But is he a guy that maybe could, reinvent Russell Wilson?
I think if there is somebody to do it, it's him. Watching that offense last year, like, it was fundamentally broken. Like, it was ugly. Like, it was hard to watch. And I think Sean Payton, coming from all those successful years in New Orleans with Drew Brees, and even when Teddy Bridgewater came in, they were good. He is a guy that can salvage that offense, I think. And the beautiful thing about the situation in Denver is that he can go hire a defensive coordinator who he's confident in and just say, okay, go work with the defense. They have so much talent over there that a good defensive coordinator will still turn that unit into a very good unit. And I think he can put a little bit more time into the offense. I like Jerry Jeudy a lot. I don't know what they're going to do with Courtland Sutton. I like Tim Patrick a lot, too. He missed all of last year. There's no shortage of weapons for Russell Wilson, but the biggest one is Javonte Williams. I was so sold on him coming out of UNC. He had a great rookie year, and I was pumped for the breakout this past year, and then unfortunately he went down. One of the first couple weeks of the season was done for the year. But I think he is going to add a new dimension to that offense, honestly. I could see him having a Jonathan Taylor-type impact. The only thing is their offensive line is really bad. They need to fix that. That's the biggest thing. Whether they address it in the draft, where they're a little bit shorthanded, they address it in the draft or free agency, that's the biggest thing. I ultimately think that will drive the offense. But I think if there's a guy to come in, it's going to be Sean Payton.
And, I've always thought, I've agreed with you, Max, actually, about that defense. I mean, really for the greater part of 10 years, they've had a very consistent defense.
Yeah.
And then once they lost Peyton Manning to retirement is when it kind of all fell apart for the offense. I think 6 quarterbacks in the last 6 years. You had Trevor Siemian and some of these Drew Lock and some of these other guys that really didn't do well in Denver. But you're right. They do have a lot of young weapons on the outside. KJ Hamler from Orchard Lake St. Mary's in Detroit played against him in high school. Well, he went to IMG Academy for his senior year in Florida, but before that he was at Orchard Lake St. Mary's, one of the teams in our league at U of D Jesuit.
Wow,
so,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he had a really good game against us my junior year, I remember.
So, he's a good player.
From Penn State.
Yep.
And so, he's another guy that was he the guy that got mad that one play threw his helmet?
Yep.
That was KJ Hamler.
Yep, that was him.
I just realized that. Oh my gosh! But if they can get that offensive line working, I know they were really high on Garrett Bowles at left tackle a couple years ago, but he doesn't seem like he's panned out as much from Colorado State.
Not.
So, need someone to protect the blind side of Russell Wilson, and I just think that. Overall, the Nathaniel Hackett thing just didn't work. Obviously, after 14 games, he gets fired.
Yeah.
But I really think Russell Wilson does have some juice left in the tank. He just needs the right system. And you're right. I think Sean Payton could be that guy. I thought if the Chargers fired Brandon Staley, I thought he might go to the Chargers.
Yeah.
But obviously that didn't happen. But I think Denver's a good spot for him.
Denver is a good spot for him.
Especially since they already have an established defense and all that as well. Some of the other new hires, Frank Reich. We mentioned how Deuce Staley is joining his staff in Carolina. And then DeMeco Ryans in Houston with our John Carroll guys.
Yeah.
What do you think of those two hires?
I love the DeMeco Ryans hire. I think he's built something pretty special there this year, and I think they could have been at least a better offensive game away from a Super Bowl. Like they're far and away the best defense in the NFL this year. I hate to make the comparison to Saleh because they were both in San Francisco and both have similar career trajectories, but I'm going to make it. He reminds me a lot of Robert Saleh. I think Saleh's done a good job in New York. Obviously, they didn't make the playoffs this year, but they took the right strides. I love that hire. The Frank Reich one is it rubbed me the wrong way a little bit. I'm not going to lie. I liked Wilkes the interim Panthers guy, and I think it's very difficult to have a team that is so bought in to interim coach that makes that stretch run and almost makes the playoffs, and then says he's gone. We're gonna go find somebody else. Maybe he's the right hire. Maybe it's the best hire for the team. But the guys in that Panthers building, after starting out with whatever record they started out with, came to work every day, wanted to win for him, and did. Like, they were a game or 2 games away from making the playoffs, and the interim coach is out. It's the interim label is a whole different debate, but I think they should have stuck with Wilkes, to be honest with you. I think they're not a bad team at all. I think there are a couple teams who are in dire need of a quarterback. That is one of them, and I think if they made the right decision there this year, they'd be in the hunt for a wild card spot.
I'm curious to get your thoughts on another name too, Jim Harbaugh. And we all, we're so familiar with him back in Detroit, and we saw Santa Ono, the president of the University of Michigan, basically say on Twitter that Jim Harbaugh is going to be back, and I've had talks with him and pretty much playing a little fanboy with him, I guess, he's back. But then you start seeing, okay, well, he's having some interviews with Denver, he's having some interviews with Carolina. It's just like, I don't mind Jim Harbaugh, like, at least exploring options, but like, at some point, you just got to stay committed to one place, and he's just not getting any jobs right now. I think, is that just a sign, like, that this guy is not going to get any NFL looks from now on, or what's the deal with that?
I think he will. Honestly, I think he will get a shot. If he wants the shot, he'll get it. He was a very successful NFL coach. A successful NFL coach. He's been a very good college coach. Again, like we talked about earlier, the college and NFL world is very different. The recruiting type things in both worlds are very different. And Michigan's a powerhouse. Like, they're going to be back next year. They're a good team. And maybe he wants to stick around and win something for Michigan and then go back to the NFL. I don't know. But, I think if he gets the shot, he'll take it. I think there will be a couple shots there for him. Not going to be this year, I don't think. But down the line, I could see it.
Well, I thought for a second he was looking at the NFL because he was under some scandal a little bit at Michigan the past month or so.
Yeah.
Stuff that had to do with COVID recruiting, which in my opinion, a lot of people were doing stuff during that.
Yeah.
That doesn't matter as much, but some of it revolved around his co-offensive coordinator, who his house got raided by the FBI just recently.
Oh my gosh!
Something with some computer incident stuff.
Oh my gosh! I did not know that.
Data breaching or something. The FBI came into his house, and then there was other scandals. Not willing to cooperate, especially when it came to like Mozzie Smith, the defensive tackle, who he had a gun charge on him.
Interesting. And
he was able to play the whole season. They didn't even suspend him for a game. Like, they didn't even mention that he had this until way later.
Yeah.
So there was this is what the NCAA is kind of going after, and I thought maybe he wanted to kind of jump ship, sort of similar to like what Pete Carroll did with USC in the late 2000s, going to Seattle. Pete Carroll was a lot younger and all that back then, obviously, but I thought that could possibly it. But Michigan, the media loves Michigan, and a lot of time, and this is my opinion, but a lot of stuff that they do gets kind of swept under the rug sometimes. Yes. And if Michigan State does something, it blows up.
Yep.
But if Michigan does something, it's tiny.
Yeah, and I honestly do think there's an art to that as a head coach of a football team. I think Nick Saban is great at it. Anything that happens with that team, kept in house. Yeah. Media doesn't hear about it. I think there is an art to it. I don't know if Michigan's just better at it than Michigan State, or the media portrays things differently, but I've noticed that for sure. Because I'm a big Alabama fan, I'm a big Saban guy. I've noticed that if there has been anything that the media's kind of picked up on from an Alabama player, it is shut down so fast. You almost never hear about it after 24 hours. It's crazy.
Maybe Michigan's just always been good at playing that game. That's a good point, Max. I never thought of that. Of it like that. But that's really interesting as well. I want to ask you one more question, and it revolves around Aaron Rodgers.
Oh, I'm glad. I was going to bring it up if you didn't ask.
I was going to say, because we were talking about the Lions-Packers game earlier in the podcast, and I just want to know, because I don't think he's going to retire.
No.
But I don't know if he's going to play for Green Bay next year. He took a real long look after the end of that Packers-Lions game, and with his arms around Randall Cobb, making it seem like, like Drew Brees a couple years ago when he looked back in the tunnel and kind of taking one last look, and then he retired a couple weeks later. It just kind of had a little bit of like, I'm not going to play for the Packers anymore written all over it. What do you think about that? I
agree with you. I think he's done there. I think he's so fed up. I think he gave them his heart this past offseason when he signed that big deal. And then they went and traded his number one receiver. Like, that breach of trust upset him on probably so many different levels. I think he loves the guys in Green Bay, and I think Christian Watson was a ginormous reason he was not requesting a trade in the middle of the season. Christian Watson was awesome this year. And I think Rodgers sees that type of potential. But I think he's gone. I think there are too many other opportunities. I'm a little bit surprised that him and Sean Payton didn't talk and go somewhere. My original thought was they both go to the Colts. I think that was a very, very feasible thing. It's a winnable division. The Jaguars are good, but it's a winnable division for sure. I could see him going to Tennessee. I think Tennessee could be a very good option for him. Really, really, really good defense there. And obviously you have Derrick Henry and emerging receiver and Treylon Burks. Like, they have some good players there. I think the most clear option is probably the Jets. It's a big market. Again, a good defense. Very, very young weapons. Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson, Michael Carter. I think Elijah Moore with the right quarterback is going to be a good player. Corey Davis. Like, there's a lot there too. But I think the most tantalizing one is Vegas. I could really see it. I could. Going back with Devontae, big market. The only thing that strays me away from that is that division.
Right.
I think if he wants to play some playoff football. He's been in a division where he's dominated almost his entire career. I don't think he would willingly go to a division like that. Obviously, you got the Chiefs and you got the Chargers. Those are two playoff teams. And Denver makes the right strides. They're not a bad team at all. Arguably better than the Raiders. I don't think he'd want to do that. If somebody made me choose now, I'd probably say Jets. But I don't think he's going to stay in the NFC. I think he'll go to the other conference.
Still have that green jersey on with the Jets,
yes,
for sure. But the Raiders thing is curious too, with Derek Carr, basically leaving and having a tearful goodbye, and
that whole situation.
It is confusing. Yeah, it is. And what's McDaniel's going to do at the quarterback position? What's management? David Ziegler, our John Carroll guy, is going to do over there in Vegas.
We'll find out.
It's going to be real interesting this entire offseason, NFL offseason. This is what makes the NFL the best, in my opinion. Having a very compelling offseason. Yeah. You see the MLB, their offseason is a rerun of all these baseball movies.
Yeah.
Like, they don't have the same coverage as the NBA. They don't have the same coverage that they do in the NFL.
No way.
I was thinking about that the other day.
And the NFL only gets crazier.
Right.
Last offseason was insane. The A.J. Brown trade was probably the craziest thing, but it was an insane offseason last year.
I mean, the fact that the Combine is now a very televised event. Yes. The draft has become not only just something that happens with the NFL teams picking guys, the future of the league, but it's a whole event.
Yes.
Cities build their whole week around that.
It's so crazy, and I will be there this year for the first time.
Oh, sweet.
It's going to be awesome.
I went in Cleveland a couple years ago. Detroit's hosting in 2024.
Really? I didn't know Detroit was hosting.
Yep, next year. And it was Kansas City this year, right?
Yeah.
2023? Yep.
Oh, no, Indy this year.
Okay, yeah. Yep. Okay. Yeah, Kansas City so Union Station, one of the I thought it was Kansas City for a sec.
I don't know. I know we are taking a trip here together to go, which is going to be awesome.
Okay.
But I feel like it is in Indy. I'll double check. But
the Combine in Indy for sure.
Oh yes, the Combine's in Indy.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, that's.
But
what
the draft.
Oh, the draft.
I thought that was in Kansas City. I thought you were referring to the draft.
No. I'll be at the Combine this year. I was at the draft in Cleveland, though. That was so cool.
Oh, yeah.
That was so cool. We stayed to watch the Giants pick, and they traded down, but it was so cool.
Well, Max, we might have to have you on later to talk about the Combine, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be happy to share my experience.
Max Loeb from Loeb's Leads. You can follow him on Twitter at Loeb's Leads, correct?
Yep.
And on TikTok as well,
Yep.
Loeb's Leads, with over 100,000 followers as well. Max, thank you so much for joining us. It's a real pleasure talking Lions and the NFL with you, and we wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
And hopefully we'll have you on again soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.